Hi, my name's Ian Wallace. I call myself the Messed Up Counsellor, which is quite an intriguing name. And the podcast you're about to see is one of many, and we've been doing about a year now. So you can look back and see all the things we've talked about with guests and on my own over the process. A lot of the information I use in the podcast initially came from the first book I wrote in 2011. Why do we do that? What do we do about it? And that came out and was the basis of all my learning and understanding at that time, which is going back a few years now. And that process of understanding how the world works for people, how we can alter, change, and adapt it, was kind of what it was there to do with the initial stages. I've made that now an audiobook as well, so it's available on Amazon as an audio file that you can check out and you can download to your heart's content, and hopefully that will be helpful. In the podcasts, we're trying to look at all sorts of things about human interactions, human dynamics, the world, and how we might understand it more or change it more. So it gives you lots of ideas and tools in order to think about and look at different ways of being or dealing with things. And hopefully that brings people together and makes people more able to connect and communicate. Lots of topics. If you ever want to connect to me, just obviously drop me a comment on the podcast and I shall try as much as possible to reply. And if you've got any ideas of things that we might want to use on the podcasts, then please let me know. My name's Ian Wallace. Thanks for looking and thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Ian Wallace, the Messed Up Counsellor. In this podcast today, I want to kind of explore something that we find awkward in lots of different ways. I'll explain. I call it this one pulled from pillar to post. So when we're doing what we do, we're engaging with the world, we tend to look at other people's needs more than ours. That's not unusual. That's not a wrong thing. That's kind of normal. We tend to find that we respond to other people's needs, most of us. Not everybody. Some people don't, but a lot of people do. And certainly the people I see in the counselling room, where the pulled from pillar to post is, how do I make all these things happen for the people around me? How do I kind of supply all their needs? How do I make everything okay? And when we're doing that, we're looking at everybody else's needs. We're looking at what their needs are. And we might know what those needs are. They might have told us. We might assume what those needs are or perceive that we know what those needs are. And so when we get pulled from pillar to post, it's something around a kind of personality that I see in the counselling room. People who are providers, people who are rescuers. They find that they work their world in a way that everybody demands things from them. And that seems, as we're working with those kind of processes, it seems like the more that we supply people's needs, the more people connect to us to supply their needs. And if we're really good at that, if we're really good at supplying other people's needs, which some people are, a lot of people are, then where's the time for us? Where's the time in our world and our life where we have space or we allow other people to provide our needs? The more we do that, supplying everybody else's needs, it seems like the more people, as I've said, want things from us. Now, there's only 24 hours in a day. So if we keep supplying people's needs and more people ask us to supply their needs, because we don't want to let them down, we don't want to feel as though that we're not helping them, we're not being there for them, we're not their friends, we're not their family member, whatever it is, whoever it is, then that pressure to provide, that pressure to do, means that there's less and less time for us. Now, in the counselling process, we can call that burnout. So, people will ring me up and they'll say, can I see you next week, for example? And I have specific days I work, specific times I work. And I've learnt that over the years. But if I didn't, then I would feel probably obliged or compelled to try and fit them in. They're in crisis, they need something, and they're asking me to furnish that need. And that's my role, that's my job. So I might be pressurised into providing another slot in my timetable next week, which I don't normally work. So that slot, that time, that hour, an hour and a half, whatever it is, then means that I don't have that hour, an hour and a half. So in the early days when I was starting to do my career in counselling, that was a very big drive, because most people get into counselling because they want to help. They want to be there for people. They want to make people happier, more content, make better choices, whatever the reason. We have a need to be needed as counsellors, generally speaking. So if I allow that need to be needed to engage with me, then I'm going to put that hour in. But then if somebody else rings up and says, can I see you next week? I might put another hour in and another hour in. And before very long, I might find that I'm working twice the hours that I would like to work and need to work, because I'm trying to furnish that need. So I'm being pushed from pillar to post. Now, if I get people that I do that for, and they know no different because I fitted them in, then they may ask me to fit another one in, and another one in, another one in, because I've been flexible. I've been able to make that happen. So that might then assume that I can do that. And this is where it gets a bit awkward, because they are now assuming, because I've not told them any different, it's not their fault, they are assuming I can do that. I can fit them in. I can do more hours. I can connect to them every week if they want. I can do that last minute appointment. So I'm providing the process initially because I want to help. I need to be needed. But then it engages with something different for them, because then they become much more aware that I can do that. So then if I'd done that 3, 4, 5 times as a regular process, they know different. They don't see a difference. So they just assume that I can. So if then I say to them, sorry, can't do that, but I've taken them down that path, that journey of saying I can do it, then they're going to be much more upset with me. They're going to say, well, why can't you do it now? You did it before. What is it about me? Why don't you like me? Do you not want to work with me? Whole range of things they may think as the reason. Then that piece of work would probably be less helpful. Or they may disengage from the work, from the counselling, because they feel as though I'm not doing something for them that I've told them I can do. So when we're pulled from pillar to post, usually it's because we have this inner need to be needed, inner need to fulfill people's expectations, to supply the people around us what they need. If we don't look at our needs, because I need to rest, same as everybody else, then the more I supply those needs, the less time I've got to supply my needs. And then I will get into a situation where normally I won't feel happy. I won't feel content. I'll feel pressurized. Might engage with less sleep, being more anxious, more worried, because I'm taking more work on. So I've got to process all that work, which we do with supervision and other tools that we use in counselling. So that process of me starting, I need to be needed, if I don't keep it in check, and if I don't keep some kind of control over it, some kind of structure, some kind of diaried time, some parameters, some boundaries, then I'm going to be starting down a process which will, quite rightly, lead me to feel less able to look after myself. Now, I would suggest in most people's worlds, if we're not happy as individuals in our world and our life, then the people that engage with us, the work we do, that won't be as good as it should be. Maybe in the initial stages, if you just do that for one client in 1 hour, that's probably not going to really upset you. But if you start doing it constantly for 5, 6, 7 hours extra work, and you're not really able from a mental or a physical or an emotional process to cope with that, then you're not only doing yourself a disservice, you're doing the person you're working with a disservice, because they're not going to get the best of you, because you might be tired, or you might be upset, or you might not be emotionally competent or congruent to be with that client. So when we're looking at this from pillar to post, you have to identify where your cutoff is. At what point do you say, actually, no, that's enough. That's as much as I can do. I need now to do this. Because if you can find that, then at least you're going to be working within your own energy levels, your own kind of competency, your own mental and emotional health, because you know that's as much as you can do. Now, it took me many years in the counselling process to do that. That wasn't something I did at the beginning. I did work too much, and I did go through some burnouts, as we call them. But eventually, I kind of realised that this being pushed from pillar to post was partly my fault. I can't blame it on the people that are asking me to work more, or give them more hours, or give them more input, because I've either allowed it, and then it's become a normality for that person, or I've not said no. I've not said my boundaries. I've not asked them to look at my boundaries and respect my boundaries. So when people now ring me up and say, can you just? I don't automatically say yes, which is a good thing. I look at the process of my work, my world, my time, my energy, and I come back to them maybe later when I've had a look. I don't instantly react, because this being pulled from pillar to post usually is an emotional reaction if we say yes. It usually comes from an emotional drive. If we have a think about it, we give ourselves some space, some time to consider the options, have a look at my diary, see what my workload is, see what I'm doing the next day or the next hour, so I know I'm going to be able to cope with it. That then is a better thing for me, obviously, because I'm putting my own boundaries in, but it's also a better thing for my clients, because they're getting the best of me. They're getting as much as I can deal with or I can do. So they are benefiting from me not being pulled from pillar to post. They're benefiting from me giving them an understanding that actually, no, I can't. And that's not because I don't like you or I don't want to work with you. That's just because this is kind of my working day. This is kind of my working week. This is the number of hours that I can work. So as we're doing that process, as we're putting those boundaries in, it's helpful to everybody. And you have to bear that in mind, certainly if you're in a helping agency, that the more you help, the less time you've got for you. The less time you've got for you, the less you can recharge your batteries. The less you recharge your batteries, the less you're going to be there for other people in a good way, in a connected way, committed way. So you have to look at the wider aspect of it's not being a bad person, me saying no. It's actually helping everybody, including me and them, by making those boundaries, by giving them some understanding that I can't just drop what I'm doing and come and see you or come and do what I do. Now, if you make a decision to do so, to drop everything, to run towards them and help them, then in my world, it's a good idea to say that this isn't the normal and this is a one-off. This might not happen next time. Because we're giving them an understanding in that process that there might be a refusal at some point. And that's not because I don't like you or any of those negative processes. It's just because this is as much as I can cope with. So when I get people in the room working with these kind of ideas, these kind of processes, these thoughts, trying to engage with that conversation, that you're not doing this just for you, you're doing this for other people as well, because the more you can be okay, happier, more content, more rested, more relaxed, your mental and emotional well-being is good, the more they get a better idea of you and a better sense of you and a better interaction with you. And that's got to be helpful for everybody. So we need to rearrange that in our minds. We need to rearrange that in our heads. And instead of it being, yes, I can think, and if you can, yes, absolutely, but you're not responding emotionally, you're responding with logic, with thought, with ideas, with evidence. But if you can't, then say you can't. And you're not being a bad person for doing so. And as you work in that process, as you're trying to rearrange this life, when you do get that time for you, when you do pull back, make sure it's something for you. Because the temptation is that, I don't give that hour to the client, but then a family member might ring me up, or a friend might ring me up, or somebody else might ring me up and engage with my time. So if you don't have that understanding of what you need in order for you to feel okay, then you're likely to give it up to somebody else. So you might not do it for work, you might do it for friendships. But it's a process of just being aware. It's not to say that people who don't do things for other people are bad people. They're not. And they're just people who need to create some boundaries. So when we rearrange that in our heads and get people to think about it in a different way, so I'm helping somebody else by doing this process, that's a much easier way to change it. Because if I was thinking I'm just doing this for me, then it probably wouldn't work as well. But because I'm doing it for somebody else's needs, that's the drive to do things for other people, then rearranging that, reframing that in our heads, in our minds, can help us to make those boundaries, to create those ideas around self-care, self-help, the things I need to make me okay. And sometimes people who are driven to supply other people's needs are not necessarily comfortable with other people supplying their needs. So sometimes not only do we rush around trying to do everything for everybody else, we also then stop people doing things for us. And that then can be a double-edged sword, which is not helpful. Because if we don't allow them to do things for us, then again, we're giving them that message. Don't bother. I'm okay. I don't need you. And that's not usually helpful, because that doesn't value them or respect them. So you have to make it so that they feel wanted, you feel wanted, clients and the people around you feel wanted. And we do that by creating this space and boundaries. Hopefully that has stimulated some ideas, some further conversations maybe. And certainly if you're a counsellor or a therapist, those are the things that you need to really have some real hard thoughts, ideas around, and put some boundaries in place. If you work more than you can cope with in this world, then nobody gets the best of you. And that is not what we're here to do. We're here to give people the best we can give them. So change it, alter it, keep it in balance. It's a balance thing. And make sure you spend time for yourself, doing your own things, the things that do fill your batteries, make you feel good, give you that sense of satisfaction, health, well-being. And then you'll be not only good for the people you're working with, but you'll also be good for your family, your friends, and the people around you, but also you'll be good for yourself. Maybe that is something to dwell on and have a think about and see where you are with your balance in your life. See where you are with that process of self. And the happier you can be, I would suggest, the better your work and your friendships and your connections will be. Take care. I'm Ian Wallace, the Messed Up Counsellor. Hi, thanks for listening to the podcast, and hopefully it made sense and was interesting for you. Please subscribe, like and share. With the podcasts, you never know who will be helped by the things we talk about, things we share. We don't normally tell people our problems, but by sharing it and helping other people to understand things. The book Insecurity, It's All About Me, is also available now through Amazon. And it gives you an understanding of what drives insecurity, how insecurity works within our human dynamics, and how you can get a much more secure connection with people. It gives you lots of ideas and thoughts, which is really good. So thanks for listening. Subscribe, like, share, hit the button. And if you've got any comments, please give me them and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks very much. Take care.